Welcome back to the Shacknews Awards 2023. We're just keeping the train rolling. We got another category we're handing out a Shacknews Award for Best Sports Game of the Year 2023. So let's go through these nominees. Well, I'm just going to kind of throw it out there. You're going to notice we're not really nominating some of the more popular franchises because they're kind of
crummy.
not
They're
great.
not good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
not
and that's
great.
not true of all of them. There's definitely some nominees that are yearly franchises that are good, and we'll get into here in a second. But shout out to Wild Card Football, which is a more arcadey, blitz kind of like football experience. Golf It. We got a couple wrestling games nominated here. AEW Fight Forever, and WWE 2K23 are receiving nominations. And also Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. This was one where it's like, is it a sports game? Is it not?
We had a long chat about this.
We feel that action sports like skating are sports.
Extreme sports.
But there's even like skateboarding is in the Olympics now. So like it's action sports are a kind of sport. And if there was competitive graffiti tagging while rollerblading, this would be the league for it. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. And then the game that I mentioned earlier, the one annual series that is nominated this year is MLB The Show 23, which I believe Donovan you reviewed. And it's a perennial nominee here at the Shacknews Awards because it is a very polished sports game. And it's now available on all platforms, which is super cool.
Almost all platforms.
Oh, not PC.
Well, not on PC yet.
How the hell is it on Switch and not PC?
Optimization teams. They prioritize Switch over PC.
What?
PC is the final frontier for.
I guess.
Show.
Apparently Sony and PlayStation ports to PC have had a checkered past, so maybe they want to get MLB The Show right when they do it because it's already so visually stunning. It needs to go well on PC when it does get there. But yeah, notable absences from this are Madden, UFC, FIFA, and NBA 2K.
NHL.
Get better. Just make NHL. Make better games, and you will get nominated. But let's talk about our nominees instead of dunking on EA. Ozzy, you had a chance to review Wild Card Football. Can you give us a little heads up for people who
does try to hit the
played it?
heights of Blitz and falls a little bit short, but as an arcade football game, I think it does a really good job. I think it's a very easy pick up and play type of game, something you can play with a friend at home.
Yep.
I love the passing system. I love the rushing system. The wild cards try to be like wacky and outlandish type of thing, like where like your rusher can become a giant, or like you can have flying saucers trying to zap you from outside. They're cool. I don't think they go quite as outlandish as they could, but you know what? They get an A for effort on that. But just as a straight up arcade football game, I had a good time with it. And it's probably the best football game I've ever played this year.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the best football game to come out this year. I agree with what you said about the wild cards. Kind of reminds me of like Mutant Football League, but I think Mutant Football League kind of did it better. But
there's ways it can improve. I think like they try and do like their own type of ultimate team type of thing, and they don't do microtransactions, so that's a plus. But still, like having that whole thing in there, it's kind of a slog. So I didn't enjoy that aspect of it. But if you have a friend over and you just want to just jump into a quick 1v1, I had a good time with it. So and it's a budget game. It's a $40 game. It's like they're not asking you to pay full price. So just jump in, enjoy yourself, have a nice little game of arcade football.
It seems likely that at some point during the holiday that game will be available on sale. And yeah, if you can get it for like $20, I think that's a no-brainer purchase. And yeah, like you're actually gonna have more fun playing that game as opposed to like if you and your friends sit down to play Madden, you're probably gonna hate each other at the end of the game, or you'll just hate EA. Either way,
they do like abbreviated playbooks, so like it's not like information overload or anything like that. So it's good enough for what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely not a football sim because there's only one football sim allowed to be produced every year, but it's just a fun football game. Which hallelujah, we need them. Next nominee is Golf It. Ozzy, I think you're the one who pressed for this to be included, so I'd like to hear about it from you.
I actually pressed for this to be nominated based on what I saw off of TJ's Indie stream, which Golf It as a mini golf game and as a fan of games like Golf with your friends, like I advocate for more mini golf games out there. And it came out of early access this year, and from what the little I played of it, I've had a really good time. It's a intuitive putting system, really cool environments, like that type of thing. It has everything you could want out of a little mini golf game, and it's something that you can play with your buddies. So.
TJ, do you have anything to add?
It's not just the built-in thing too, like the amount of, it's got a very robust community and like level building system, and there are so many ridiculous courses that people have put together. I actually played some user created courses while I was on stream, and like one of them was just built around the idea of like carnival games at a theme park. And just like there's others that are like deep sea themed, others that are like space themed, and just like the stuff that people come up with and the courses that they've put together are so ridiculous. I love them.
I love when games let you do that, because it just creates way more play, like just way more time that you can play the game. Like, I think a golf game can get really boring if there's like a finite amount of levels, but when you let the community just kind of go with it, it's awesome.
It's the best route to take too. Golf with your friends is still doing like expansions and updates and all that, but there's something about letting your community run wild with their imagination that makes it stand out.
Yeah, and you might get more creative things just from fans who are willing to sit there and agonize over angles of little things. But yeah, I love it. We do need more golf games. Multiplayer golf games are fun too.
And I say that as somebody who was very disappointed by Mario Golf last year.
Oh god, that was so bad. Let's not even talk about it. Next up, I got a soft place in my heart for this game. AEW Fight Forever is maybe not the most polished game, but this is the first AEW wrestling game ever, right? This is their entrance into the space. And while it may not be the most polished game, I believe Denny and I streamed it on launch day, and we had a blast. Like, I don't care if it's not the most technically proficient wrestling game out this year. It's just fun. It is a fun game to play with friends. And
they wanted to be No Mercy, and they ended up being that in more ways than one. For good and bad.
They brought you back for the game.
Yeah.
This is David, it feels like you want to say something here.
No. I think it was a good first effort, but probably not good enough to really. The sequel better be good, or I think it's dead in the water. Like, honestly, if Tony Khan hears what I have to say here, he's probably going to rant on Twitter for 3 days straight, and AEW fans don't need it anymore. But I thought it was a good first effort. I think that developers need to stop chasing No Mercy. There's a lot that was bad about that game and WrestleMania 2000 that everyone overlooks because nostalgia is a fucking drug. This is really fun. This is fun for what it is. WWE 2K3 or 2K23 is a lot better, but it technically came out last year, so yeah.
But before we segue into WWE 2K23, I will say this about AEW Fight Forever in terms of like newer ideas. They threw in Stadium Stampede a few months after launch, and that's fun. That's a good time there.
That's a lot of fun.
And I say that as somebody who really misses Rumbleverse. This doesn't quite fill the void, but like this is that was something that was just stupid fun to jump into, and I enjoyed Stadium Stampede a lot.
Like, to me, that's for a sports game, it has to be fun. I am not going to play it if I'm like, oh, this is a great simulation. I don't give a crap about simulation unless it's like SimCity style games, right? Like, if I'm playing a sports game, like, the most important thing is that it's fun and that people will want to play it. And I think AEW got enough right on the gameplay side that I think that they can figure out the modes, they can figure out entrance music, they can do some things to make it more polished. I do want to see like another take on this It's not like that bad. Where like, oh, I don't
really
want.
not. I think this is a good foundation. I will say it's contextual too. Like you bring up a really good point. When I play basketball or football games, I want NBA Jam or Blitz or Wild Card. When it comes to wrestling, I am really into simulation. I look for that depth. I don't have to have it. Like there still, when I get together with friends, we play WWE 2K games. We do tornado tag and ladder matches and stuff like that. But I feel like you can get that and sim style wrestling in WWE games right now. But to your point, I do think, like, I give it a hard time. I think AEW Fight Forever is a good foundation. I think they really need to get more right next time for anyone to care. Like, if they don't get it right the next time, I don't think they have.
At least from what I was
to
hearing, they
much
plan
to do.
on kind of sticking with the AEW Fight Forever for a while instead of releasing a sequel. So I think they're going to keep pushing more improvements on the game itself.
That's good.
I will say that
Yeah,
one of the big
I'm
things that
gonna
the
stand
game
up.
needed to kind of get more together was the actual adding the crossplay feature.
Yeah.
Like there's so many of my games that bought this on different platforms. Some of my friends that could not play together, and I feel like that's a missed opportunity there for this kind of game.
Yep.
I will say, as
will
a
say
hockey
that if the
fan, go ahead, Finch.
good.
I was just gonna say, I'm just excited that you guys have two games about wrestling because it's inevitably going to make them better. You know what I mean? Like if you only have one dominant game in the space, such as like
Yeah.
Madden, such as like FIFA, such as like NHL,
UFC.
you
Yeah.
do not get any kind of progression. You do not get something better. So one way or another, and I know it's kind of like a sidebar statement, but one way or another, wrestling games are going to get better.
But
No,
it's
it's
also
actually
true.
a good segue to WWE 2K23 because not only is it more, it's not a meme anymore. Remember, like on launch day, you'd always see the memes about how broken the game is, and like you see the glitches and all that stuff. You didn't see that for 2K23 this year. And on top of that, like on top of being a more polished product, they added war games. And war games is cool. I love war games. So that they added it and made it fun to play, like that's why it's on this list.
Yeah, I think to Bill's point, it's
I
not just.
misspoke earlier.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no,
I
I
was
was
just
saying.
gonna say I misspoke. I could have sworn that came out last fall, so I was wrong.
No, it came out WrestleMania this year.
It was kind of like middle of the
that's
year.
right.
But yeah, like to Bill's earlier point, I don't think it's just about the video games competing with each other. I think AEW has made WWE have to look inside itself and get better. And I think that's true of AEW as well. Like the competition in the actual orgs is making pro wrestling better as a whole.
WWE
And
is so much
AEW, they
better.
marketed it that way as well. It was like having an alternative as far as the actual game itself. They said multiple times, this is not a simulation. We are not going for full blown simulation here. Fight Forever before release, and made that kind of like a big focal point.
Yeah, I think that like there's just some standards that WWE has in it with like the creator wrestlers, the creator arenas and stuff that I would have liked to see AEW try to compete in that space, but I understand why they went the route they did for this first game. But yeah, like to Ozzy's point, like WWE 2K had been a meme for like 4 years, and this is actually a good game. So it deserves a nomination for sure. And I'm just happy that we have options for wrestling games. Like it didn't make the list, but we also got WrestleQuest this year, which is like a completely different take on the wrestling genre. It was like an RPG built in the wrestling universe. So I think it's a good time for wrestling video games, and yeah, I hope AEW can build upon this. Because look at MLB or not, look at WWE. Like just a year ago, that game was terrible, and obviously this is a yearly iteration game, but it's noticeably better. Let's get to these other.
I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say
David?
they took like a year or two off, which they really needed to, right? But if the next AEW has a Texas deathmatch mode where I can drink my opponent's blood, that's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't think
That was a hell of a thing to see live.
I mean, they have the exploding barbed wire deathmatch. What more do you want?
That was fun.
That thing is silly
was
too.
a lot better in the game than it went off in real life, actually.
Yeah, probably. Moving on though, another nominee Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Sam, you've been singing this game's praises for a while.
I have, and I was just playing it a few nights ago, and last night actually, just to refresh my memory. I really love Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. I don't know if there's those among you who have played Jet Set Radio in the past, but I mean, let's call a spade and say that Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is heavily inspired by Jet Set Radio. You know, I'm not very good at extreme sports games or sports games in general. I'm not very good at Tony Hawk's. So being able to do like tricks and moves in this and do them well and string together big combos it feels rewarding. The fact that you can switch between inline skates and BMX and skateboards and manual between grind rails and then up telephone poles and then like wall run across billboards while tagging graffiti. I don't know. I think I wanna encourage more developers to get into the extreme sports because I was just looking back at Shacknews' history of what's won this category in the past, and we've always tended, except for an outlier, tended to go for a franchise or a sports game that's sort of outside the norm. We haven't gone wrestling, we haven't gone like football. We've gone for something a little bit kitschy and unique, and I think that Bomb Rush Cyberpunk kind of fits that. Like how we've done this in the past, and I don't know if you haven't checked it out. I definitely think you should, especially if you're a JSR fan.
It does definitely kind of fall into that category of past winners like Knockout City and that type of thing.
And Wind Runners, I think it's called.
Windjammers.
Windjammers. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
And Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games was another one. Mario Tennis, like Mutant Football. Yeah, it kind of matches what we've done in the past.
Because it goes back to what I was saying. Like games have to be fun, and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is fun. Like that whole concept and the jet. I remember when it was called Jet Grind Radio. That's how old I am. But like, yeah, the that genre did not exist for a while. Like, I think we had Sunset Overdrive was kind of like it.
You could grind across the rails, but that was more like a zombie crafting game. Yeah.
Yeah, that became more about combat than it did about the actual sport. And
that was Insomniac's Spider-Man prototype, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. On Xbox. just
right.
Times have changed. But no, I think it's a valid nomination. I think your point about how we tend to pick different games, because to me a sports game has to be fun first, and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is definitely fun.
Yeah, it's definitely not the most complex sports game. It's quite straightforward to string together tricks, but again, like you said, it's fun, it's enjoyable, you feel really cool, and that's, I haven't even mentioned the soundtrack, which will be a conversation and a hill that I will die on later on.
Yeah. No, I know. The soundtrack is outstanding. We got one more nominee. We already kind of talked about WWE 2K23 here in the AEW conversation. We kind of merged those two. But MLB The Show 23 is also receiving a nomination. This is a solid game. It's out on multiple platforms, not PC. I believe the one of the bigger things they did this year is they added the Negro Leagues to the game.
Which is a really cool feature. Like to teach that kind of history and show you the players of that era and the people who pioneered professional baseball for Black players in the future. Like I thought that was really cool that they added that.
Go ahead, Donovan.
It's not even like a half-assed thing either. Like they collaborated with the Negro Leagues Museum to make that. They're like little cinematics you watch, like the kind of intercut between each of the players. You've got like Jackie Robinson, but they've got like Buck O'Neil in there, Hank Thompson. They really go around and highlight all these players, many of whom I didn't even know about myself. And obviously all that on top of the fact that MLB The Show is probably the best of the annualized American sports franchises. It's probably the least shameless in its pursuit of or I guess the least, I guess it would be the most shameless, right? They're the least greedy about their pursuit of like microtransactions and whatnot. All that stuff's there, but they definitely do not shove it down your throat like some other games that
it doesn't feel like you need to do them. Like you can't
Right.
really have fun in Ultimate Team without pulling out a credit card. Like you can have fun in MLB The Show 23 without pulling out your credit card. I think that's the main difference.
Madden does that thing where they'll take features out and they'll try and reintroduce them again like 5-6 years later and be like, hey, we're adding this. And it's like, no, you actually took this out of the game 6 years later. MLB The Show doesn't do that. They always try something new and interesting, and it doesn't always work. Like I remember when they tried to add the arcade mode for Griffey. So, like I didn't think that was particularly good, but they tried. Like they tried something different, and and they're still trying different things on top of being a really damn good baseball game.
And a good sim. Like that is a
Yes.
game that is like a very good simulator compared to a lot of the other pro sports games. So yeah, I definitely agree with everything that we're saying here, but I don't know. I don't.
And
Does
for the
anyone here
record,
actually
this
watch
Negro League
baseball?
feature hits.
Does anyone here actually watch baseball, like on TV? Have
I
you
do.
tried?
I
to
watched the
watch
Orioles get swept by the Rangers in the playoffs. So
it? There
there's
you
that.
go.
I actually watch maybe 25 games a year.
What?
Yeah.
Full baseball games?
Yeah.
Good
Yep.
God, that's a
Wow.
lot of time. That's a lot of
Here's
time.
why though. It's because the way that my cable provider works is I can watch television like either on a TV or I can just log into a website and have like
Sure.
the full experience. So I'll pop it on like my second monitor if I'm like working in the evening or something, or if I'm.
But this
like,
is
playing,
just
like...
Blue Jays we're talking here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
I-
you're
Yeah,
not
I
just-
have no. I couldn't even. Dude, if you wanted to give me $100,000 to name every Major League Baseball team, I would not have $100,000.
But like,
Steve,
you know how like
is-
Apple they've made this big bet on like Friday Night Football. Has anyone here actually ever watched Friday Night Football or baseball on Apple?
I watched it once, and that's because they get around the blackout restrictions. So you
Okay.
can actually watch your local team on Apple
Wow.
TV.
Yeah, I
Is-
don't know.
Steve our big baseball bloke?
I
Does Steve like baseball? I think
I think Steve is a Mets fan.
He's
I
a
think.
he's a Mets fan. So
Yes.
Last time I cared about baseball, the Cubs won the World Series, and then I stopped.
Oh, don't you? How dare you, sir?
Look,
You know-
I just watched the Angels go all in on a playoff push by mortgaging their entire future to be like, okay, we're going to make the playoffs and we're going to keep Shohei Ohtani. And then they proceeded to go like 2-28 for the rest of the month. They're out of the playoffs. They have no future picks, and they're going to lose Ohtani anyway. So
I was
it's not
there.
a good time to be an Angels
Danny.
fan.
I was there, Game 7, and in Cleveland, and it sounded like a home game for the Cubs because all those rich assholes from Chicago came to town, and no one could afford the tickets to actually create a home field advantage.
You're not that
Then
far.
Austin became a meme.
I mean,
And then I maybe became an animated GIF at that game. I may or may
You
not
definitely
have
did.
been.
You definitely did.
I may or may not have been there on TV, the bottom of the ninth, tie game, and then the clouds open up and it starts raining on. We two cursed franchises come together in this very cursed moment. Someone had to win, I guess. Congratulations.
We'll never
to the
see
Cubs.
anything like that again.
But yeah, congratulations to the Cubs. That was the year that broke the timeline because the Cavs won the NBA Finals, defeating the Golden State Warriors. Donald Trump won the election. Cubs win the World Series. If you ever wanted to find where we jumped timelines, 2016. That's where.
It turns out the
everything
Mayans
derailed.
were off. Who knew?
But yeah, so these are great games. Like I said, we talk about sports a lot on our staff. It's funny because I'd say a lot of us like football here, and to not really have like an NFL game nominated speaks to how bad the NFL games are that are out these days. But yeah, maybe someday, anything's possible. Maybe someday we'll have an EA game that we want to nominate for this. Maybe it'll be that golf one though. So yeah, let's vote. I'm gonna start with Denny. What you got?
I think I'm gonna lean a bit and I'm gonna go with Sam's choice. With Bomber Cyberpunk. I'm gonna change it up a little bit.
There
on
you
this
go.
one.
Okay, David, what you got?
I'll go with MLB. I actually enjoy a good baseball game, so I'll go there.
Donovan.
MLB The Show. think that game is great.
Greg,
Yeah, MLB The Show.
that's surprising that you don't really watch sports.
No.
It's got to vote
TJ.
for something.
But I gotta vote
That's
for
true.
something. All right, and I gotta listen to the arguments. That's the point of the debates, of the deliberations.
Yes.
I was
Correct.
originally in the AEW camp, but like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is really cool. Like I was watching some gameplay, and man, I want to put my Tony Hawk skills to the test in that game and really just see what kind of things I can do.
Yeah. Ozzy.
I'm gonna go with MLB The Show. There's something to be said about them still making these games at such a high level and continuing to add features and continuing to try new things.
Yep. Bill.
I am MLB The Show.
Sam.
Bomb Rush. Even, despite.
Well, my vote doesn't matter here, but since it doesn't matter, I'm giving it to AEW. I just like that game. It's fun. I don't care if it's flawed. I have a lot of fun playing it, and that to me is the most like if I look at all the sports games that came out this year, I'm like what did I have the most fun playing? It was AEW Fight Forever. So that's my vote. But like I said, my vote doesn't matter because MLB The Show 23 wins. So congratulations to is that PlayStation?
PlayStation, Sony, San Diego.
Sony San Diego. You win the Shacknews Award for the best sports game of the year 2023. Huzzah.